You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a teaching tutorial Thursday where the wisdom's coming from my guy, Michael North, one of these scheduling czars for the NFL. I love it every year. Very much looking forward to it. I'm not messing around. Let's get right into the schedule release 2024. It's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
Man, I look forward to this interview every year. I don't remember the first year we did it. I can go back and look, but people watched and listened to that for years.
I knew
People
you went,
go
buddy.
back. I think it
I
was.
knew you went. You're a big star now. I appreciate you still having me on. I remember when we doing this and maybe 30 people listened, and you're a big star now. So thanks for the exposure. I appreciate it.
You know what, Michael? I'm talking, of course, with Michael North, the Vice President of Broadcast Planning for the NFL. Michael, what's funny about that is I'm not, like I say this every year, I don't only remember any of you guys doing interviews till I had you on, because people were like blown away when you talked about it. It was like 8 years ago. And now every TV station, every radio station, now they all have all of you guys on, all of their. I started this trend.
You broke the mold, man. You set the trend.
All right. So let's start, Michael, like we do every year, with a quick tutorial for the new listeners or the new people checking us out, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL, with what the schedule makers do and do not do, because I feel like there are people, even if they know, they need to be reminded how much of this is formulaic, aka pretty much all of it, and then what you guys end up doing.
Yeah, what we don't do is choose who plays whom. What we do is decide who plays who when. So the 272 matchups are known once the regular season ends. Some of it's by rotation, some of it's by standings. 14 of your 17 games are known by rotation, and they're known going out really for the next dozen years. So 14 of your 17 opponents for really the next dozen years, unless we realign or expand or do anything crazy. 14 of your 17 opponents for really the next couple decades. It's those last three that are standings based, and you got to wait for the previous regular season to finish before you know all 272 matchups. And then it's our job to kind of take those 272 games and find the right home for them. What does that mean? Some of them sound like Sunday night football games. Some of them sound like Monday night football games. Others are qualifying for kickoff week 1. Some of them maybe belong on Thanksgiving or in London or in Germany. Others maybe belong on a Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock. Some maybe feel better early in the season. Some feel better late in the season. What we don't do is say that game right there needs to be on that network in that week, lock it in and go. What we do is say a game like that could wear a lot of different hats. It could be Sunday night. It could be Monday night. It could be Thursday night. No, wait, it can't be Thursday night because it's a 3 time zone trip. So take it out of the pool for Thursday night, but it's still good for Sunday night. It's still good for Monday night. But if you're going to do it on Monday night, let's do it early in the season when we're still telling stories looking back, as opposed to late in the season when we're really telling stories looking ahead to the postseason. So we kind of give the computers some guidelines, some guardrails, some constraints, and then we're trying to balance maximize viewership, maximize fan interest, and minimize team pain. So you could make really the best possible television schedule, all Dallas, all Kansas City, all San Fran every weekend. That's probably not going to be your fairest schedule to your clubs. You're going to have a lot of teams with, call it 3-game road trips, road after road Monday, rest disparity, stadium conflicts, whatever it is. You could do it the other way. Every team gets the perfect schedule. Home away, home away, home away. Everybody gets a midseason bye. Nobody has to go to Florida in September. Nobody has to go to Lambeau in December. That's probably not going to be your best television schedule. So somewhere between your best television and your fairest team stuff, that's our sweet spot. Can we maximize viewership, maximize fan interest, and minimize competitive inequities? We don't want anybody to get their schedule today and say, how could they do this to us? It's completely unfair. We can't compete. Nobody says that, of course, and there's no such thing, I don't think. But that's the job, trying to find that balance between maximizing viewership, maximizing fan interest, and minimizing the teams that are really, really mad at us.
Michael, I forgot that. So there's a rule for Thursday night football that nobody goes 3 time zones. It's a max 2 time zones. Is that right?
Look, it's a short week. You're asking a team to travel. You remember from your playing days, sometimes when you were traveling across the country, you'd go on Friday, right, for a Sunday game. If you're going 2 days early for a Thursday game, you're going Tuesday. You just played Sunday. Like you don't even get a chance to practice. I don't think that's the right thing for the National Football League. Sometimes the trip is a little longer than you thought. Look, sometimes a one time zone trip can be more air miles than, a 2 or 3 time zone trip. So just trying to be cognizant of something like that. When we do play a team 3 time zones on a short week like that, it's usually as part of a paired trip. You remember last year we played a Giants 49ers game on a Thursday night. That's rare for Amazon to have a game like that. It's because the Giants played Arizona the week before and stayed out west, practiced there, and then went for the short week, but off of one trip. So generally speaking, you don't have the longest trips on a short week. We've got more short weeks now when you add in a Black Friday, when you add in the 2 Wednesdays. So trying to manage all those things, trying to just be prepared for what the teams think are competitive challenges. And we're constantly monitoring, is this unfair? Does it change expected points scored? Does it change expected win percentage? Our data guys are watching, Vegas lines. Are they moving as a result of the schedule? Those are the kind of things that I think we've got to have our, thumb on the pulse and make sure we're not being just a little too reckless, a little too cavalier with some of our decisions.
Michael, do you guys look at rest advantage or disadvantage? And I bring that up because every year, and I'm sure you're familiar with him, Warren
Your
Sharp,
buddy
who is
Warren,
an
yep.
absolute data guy. He's all over the rest disparity. And in fact, it is something that we do talk about on our betting podcast, the Even Money podcast. I never, to be honest with you, Michael, I never even heard of it till like 2 or 3 years ago. But now it's become something that people talk about. And I'm sure there's at least some teams that think that there's something real to that. Is that something that you guys now take into account, the either for a given week or over the course of a season, the rest disparity, rest disadvantage?
Because it's something that people are talking about, we obviously have to pay attention to it. I'm curious, when you think about it on your betting pod or when you do talk to Warren, is it real? Like, do you bet differently because a team is rested or not rested? If you find something like that, then obviously there's something to it. I don't think we have found that yet. Think about last season where the two teams with the greatest total negative rest disparity were the Rams and the Niners. You had a unprecedented run for, I think it was Kansas City, maybe 5 or 6 weeks in a row with a negative rest. And I know Warren was really focused on Philadelphia having to play, something like Dallas, Buffalo, San Francisco all right in a row with those guys coming off of Thursdays or something like that. Those four teams probably had the biggest gripes, if you will, in terms of negative rest disparity from last season. All four made the playoffs, two made the Super Bowl, one got a ring. Like, I'm not sure you can say that negative rest disparity was a unfair competitive inequity that any of those teams had to face. So like everything else, we'll keep an eye on it. We'll keep watching it. We've got a data team here led by a guy named Mike Lopez, who is brilliant. You should have him on your pod if you haven't yet. He's spectacular. And he's watching for things like that, whether it's time zones, weather, travel, quarterback injuries, rookie quarterbacks, rest disparity, weather. He's always watching for stuff like that and trying to make sure that we're not missing anything. We shouldn't be reacting to something like that. We should be proactive on something like that.
What was new this year, Michael? So just so everybody knows, you have this really robust computer program. You throw everything into it. You have different inputs, and sometimes you'll say, we don't want anybody to do this. We don't want to have anybody have 3 straight away games or 3 straight home games or whatever it is, right? What was new? Were there any new known inputs that you can tell us this year? Things that you wanted to make sure did not happen to anyone this year?
Yeah, I'm not sure there was anything that was, a line we wouldn't cross. What was new for this year was, what continues to be new for us every year. There's just a lot of mouths to feed. You think about what we're doing here on Wednesday on Christmas with Netflix now, and that's a unique set of challenges for us. First time we're playing 2 games on a Wednesday like this. You got to think about where those teams are the week before, so they're going to play Saturday. So Saturday to Wednesday, comparable obviously to Sunday to Thursday, which we play in this league every week. That was a pretty narrow needle to thread if you think about it. We were looking for 4 teams that all played each other, 1 home and 1 away for each of them. that were worthy, of national television windows. There's no flexible scheduling coming for Saturday, December 21st or Wednesday, December 25th. So could we find 4 teams that were all playing each other, little round robin, one home, one away for everybody, and worthy of national television windows in week 16 and 17? That's, 8 months away. God knows what these teams are going to be. So you kind of gamble on some brands and some teams that you think are going to be there down the stretch. Kansas City and Baltimore, obviously 2 of our probably best teams in the league right now. Pittsburgh, right? Coach Tomlin's never had a losing season. He always has that team competitive down the stretch. And kind of like we talked about already, Houston's maybe that kind of riser, that up and coming team. And you think about, could they have been the kickoff game this year in Kansas City, kind of like Detroit was last year? Well, they actually probably earned an even bigger footprint now if you think about playing in those 2 Saturday to Wednesday games down the stretch. So that one was obviously new. First game in Brazil, that's a new one on us. ESPN Plus moving out of a Sunday morning window to a Monday night window. So that's now 4 Monday night side-by-sides. There's a lot of mouths to feed, and trying to make sure that everybody feels like, they got that tasty morsel, they got that bite of that juiciest apple. The puzzle never gets any easier to solve, but really think we, checked a lot of boxes for a lot of people. I'm not sure everybody got everything, but hopefully everybody got something.
You mentioned week 15, week 16. Last year, obviously, you guys went real heavy on the Jets for obvious reasons, and Aaron Rodgers and, New York, and we know all that stuff. And he got hurt on the 4th play. Again this year, a lot of Jets in prime time, obviously hoping that doesn't happen again. I guess my question, Michael, is there anything you guys can do about that or similar situations to that to not have that be the case with, I'm not talking about the Jets. I'm talking about any team, any year where it's like, man, if a guy gets hurt early, the rest of those games are tough. Or is that's just football?
I don't even want to speak those possibilities into existence, man. It was awful losing Aaron 4 plays in last year. Anybody who thinks the NFL is scripted, that was not in the script last year. Definitely not. Dread every day, Patrick Mahomes getting hurt, Josh Allen getting hurt. We're a quarterback-driven league. That's where, the stars are. Those are the names that people know. That's where the Instagram followers come from, the hats and jersey sales. Like, we are a quarterback-driven league, and anytime any of those guys get hurt, the interesting thing is when you see how good a football team is when they lose their quarterback, right? You think about Cleveland. Well, they have 4 different guys play quarterback last year and still made the playoffs. You think about Indianapolis losing Richardson, and, we're still playoff relevant in Week 18 with Gardner playing quarterback. Good football teams are built to withstand challenges, including injuries. To your point, it's part of the sport. It happens, but yeah, kind of dread every day that we might lose one of our star players that we're kind of banking on. What can we do about it? Well, I guess you could put less Jets in prime time, but by the same token, you could put less Kansas City in prime time, less Dallas in prime time. That's probably not what our fans are looking for from us. I think they're looking for the big teams, the big brands, the big stars in big television windows where they can watch them if they want to. And if injuries happen, well, hopefully the team's built for it. Second most important player on the roster might be the backup quarterback. And then, if we find ourselves in a situation where a team isn't having the season they want and they still have some national television down the stretch, that's where flexible scheduling kind of kicks in. We're not doing anybody any favors, leaving them in a big window, playing outdoors at night in the cold when they're eliminated from playoff contention. Let's move that game back to an afternoon slot and find somebody who has played their way in. It's a zero-sum game. If a team is losing their quarterback and they're down and their record isn't good, somebody else is coming into that spot. I read the stat in the press release this morning, something like 34 years in a row that the NFL has had 4 or more new playoff teams every year. So there's always surprises coming. That's where flexible scheduling kind of kicks in. That team we didn't see coming here in May, can we get them into a national window when they've played their way into prime time in December?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like, Michael, and I know some people don't like it, but that's really the answer, right? Is just the more flex scheduling, the better. The earlier the flex scheduling, the better. And what I always say about people about the flex scheduling, people get up in arms about it. You're not really, it's almost like, I feel like it's almost like the fire alarm, right? Like break glass in case of emergency. You're not really going to pull that thing unless you feel like you absolutely have to. And quite frankly, if you pull that thing, the team themselves probably wants you to pull it at that point. So I don't know. I think the flex scheduling thing, people get all up in arms about it. You didn't even really use the one last year. So I don't know. I think that's a little bit much ado about nothing.
It doesn't happen as often as you would think if you read the Twitter sphere, but it is a tool in the toolbox. And, like we said, it's sports, right? None of us know anything. God forbid you get some bad injuries and the league looks very different. And nobody saw Houston coming last year, and they were a great story. I'm not sure who this year's Houston is just yet. See who's coming out of nowhere. But it's not always about flexible scheduling for prime time, right? We could move you on a Sunday afternoon from a 1 o'clock window to a 4 o'clock window, or even oddly from a 4 o'clock window to a 1 o'clock window, and get you a little more distribution, let a few more fans find your game and be able to get introduced to your franchise as you're probably, we think, heading for January football.
Any unique challenges this year, Michael? I know there's always, I think Taylor Swift has concerts maybe in 3 NFL cities.
Yeah.
I know you're not allowed to say anything bad about her.
Never. I went to the tour. It was spectacular. Look,
there's always unique challenges?
There's always challenges. There's, college football games. There's golf tournaments. There's NASCAR races. There's teams
But who gets priority? All those other things get priority before you guys? It's the NFL stadium.
We're not making our best schedule if we're asking our teams to have to fight their way through challenges. And you think about a baseball team, maybe they don't share the stadium anymore like we used to have in the old days, but they still share a downtown footprint. They still share parking lots. They still share municipal services. And, here we are trying to guess which one of the NFL teams are going to be playoff relevant. We've also got to keep an eye on the Major League Baseball schedule. For years, we didn't really have to worry about scheduling the Ravens games in October because the Orioles were not competitive. And suddenly now the Orioles are going to be right there. So suddenly now that schedule for the Orioles is going to impact that Ravens schedule a little bit more in October. So kind of working around stadium availability. We kind of hinted at the Wednesday already. You've got teams playing Sunday, Saturday, Wednesday. That's 3 games in 10 days. There's a handful of other teams playing Monday, Sunday, Thursday, 3 games in 10 days. So if that happens to fall on somebody, lights went off in the conference room. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm standing too still. Hang on, let me turn the lights on. There we go.
There you go.
Managing, the competitive challenges for our teams. You never want to completely be dismissive of the competitive challenges that you're putting on your clubs in the pursuit of, revenue or television viewership. And I'll tell you, maybe the biggest challenge, honestly, Ross, is we've got a lot more teams now playing multiple short weeks, right? For a long time, we only played Thursday games on Thanksgiving. Then we had a half-season package of Thursday games, starting in Thanksgiving and gone down kind of a run-up to the playoffs. Then we expanded it to a full season worth of Thursday games. And as we partner with Amazon and we continue to think about how to build that product and build that brand, one way to do that is to put more of the good teams on more often. Same way Sunday Night Football is always the number one show in television. It's because they've got 3 Dallas Cowboys games, 3 Kansas City games. It's the same reason why we're looking at the Amazon package and thinking about, hey, can we put a few teams on twice? And that will, kind of lift that EKG of their ratings every week, maybe raise the whole bar. So you got a handful of teams now, a lot more than we're used to, playing multiple short weeks. So can you spread those 2 short weeks out? You get the mini bye after your Thursday. Can we separate those mini buys from each other, from the full bye? Make sure that everybody's got those kind of 3 separate rest periods. I don't think, again, we're doing a good job if you got, both your Thursdays and your bye all done by week 8. Then you've got whatever it is, 9 or 10 weeks uninterrupted of football. Try to give everybody that rest period somewhere in there. If you're going to play those multiple short weeks, take advantage of the time off after with that mini bye and spread those strategically throughout the year. That's probably been the biggest challenge now.
How do you balance, Michael, wanting to give good games for these new providers, the streaming services, Netflix, Amazon, with, I guess, the understanding that some people, maybe a decent amount of people, don't pay for those or subscribe to those, and you're always going to get the biggest audience on, network television. That's an interesting balance to me because I know you guys prioritize, the most eyeballs possible.
Yeah, look, the overwhelming majority of the NFL games are all still available, on free over-the-air television. And don't forget, every single game is available on free television in the home market. So even if your team is selected for a Netflix game, a Peacock game, an Amazon game, an NFL Network game, it's still on a station in your market, a free over-the-air television station. So every game's still available for free to the home fans. Nationally, yeah, the overwhelming majority are still on traditional media partners, but the world is shifting, right? A few years ago, I'm not sure any of us could have imagined games on Amazon, games on Peacock, games on Netflix. Now it doesn't really seem that far-fetched. And when you think about what Peacock was able to do with that wild card game last year, they got to something like 23, 24 million viewers. That's broadcast level television viewership. So as the streaming services are able to demonstrate that mass audience like that, they become a viable home for NFL football. And just strategically looking forward, not just to this season or next season, but 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, that's where the next generation ingests their content. You and I might be too old to find these streaming services now, but our kids will help us find them. And that's where those guys ingest their content, and that's where they interact with the game. And I don't think you're going to see a mass exodus of games going to these streaming services. I don't think you're going to see a Super Bowl on any of those services, but slowly but surely just trying to make sure that, there are other potential platforms, all other potential homes, and kind of test them out, innovate, try new things. Our fans will tell us, when we've done something that doesn't make sense. So far, I'm not sure we've gotten to that just yet, and they're a pretty resilient bunch. If the game is good, I think they'll find a way to watch it almost no matter where we put it.
What do you do now, Michael? Just like take the next 6 months off?
Oh, yeah, I'm done. Not at all. Not at all. The schedule comes out a little bit later than it used to. When we first started doing this together, that schedule used to come out almost like stealthily mid-April. Like, yep, we're done. Here it is. It's coming out tomorrow. And okay, well, we're doing mock drafts and we're meeting the prospects. Oh, here's the schedule. Okay, now back to the draft. Now that we've moved it into May, it's a little bit further out for those of us who work on this project. We start literally the day after the Super Bowl. And so it's an extra 3-4 weeks of grinding for us, but the solution space is infinite. I frankly wish we had another month. I'd love to know what else is out there that we couldn't find through this, infinite solution space as we were searching through schedules. But because we're a little bit later, the season sneaks up on you quick, right? They're going to be in camp in July, first preseason game, first week in August. Like there's not much of an off season anymore. So give everybody a break, let everybody catch their breath. It's been a long grind, and yeah, we'll be back at it soon enough. I think what we try to do, honestly, Ross, is take what we learned from this scheduling season and how do we apply it to next scheduling season. Obviously, we don't know the 272 matchups yet, but what would a schedule look like if we had, 0 3-game road trips? What would a schedule look like if we didn't have quite as much Jets on national television, but that might bring with it, multiple appearances for some of the teams that didn't have winning records from last year? What would a schedule look like if, we had more games side by sides on Monday nights? What would a schedule look like if we had 6, 7, 8 international games? All things that might be coming somewhere down the road. So want to start that process early, kind of do some aim high steering and figure out what this puzzle might look like in the future and be ready for it. So far, we've been able to handle just about anything they've thrown at us. Probably going to become a victim of our own success. They're probably just going to keep throwing more at us. So want to be prepared for literally just about anything you could think of.
Michael, you are the man. Look forward to this every year. Appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
Always good to see you, man. Glad you're a big star now. Thanks for having me on, Still.
Awesome stuff from Michael North. I just want to look at the schedule and dream about these games and drink Labatt Blue Light and pretend like I'm watching these games with my friends and family and living life to the power of we. Always enjoy it responsibly. It is truly delicious beer. Hopefully I'll get to do some Bills games this year. Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York.
Tuck's Takes.
All right, Ross. Well, after talking with Mike, were there any other thoughts that you had on the NFL schedule?
Well, one thing I'll say before I forget, it also got released yesterday that HBO is doing a Hard Knocks off-season with the Giants, which I like any behind-the-scenes stuff. I like any document. The only stuff I watch on TV is live sports or documentaries. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully they'll show more than recent Hard Knocks have shown, but any morsel of it I enjoy. And then honestly, the only thing I think is most interesting about the NFL schedule release to me at this point is, first of all, games that might be significant to me, like the Eagles preseason games or local games for Westwood One potentially, but also just primetime. Like the Carolina Panthers got 0 primetime games. That is just, we do not respect you. And now the Panthers got to prove them wrong. Other than that, I think we're done here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network on Samsung TV Plus, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com. My anniversary's coming up on Tuesday, and it's the best anniversary gift ever, birthday gift. Hey, listen, we got Father's Day will be here before you know it, although nobody gives any love for Father's Day. I do. myfrontpagestory.com. How about Pizza Boy Brewing, Sporticulture, HumanHeadNYC.com, SteakhouseSports.com, BackOfficeScheduler.com.